Alright, so what's up everybody? Basically this is going to be the start of a new series that I'm going to do, and it's basically touching on ARAMs. There are a few things that I feel pretty confident about, and as you'll see after my first game, I've played almost 1,500 games of ARAM. Leveling up this account, the joke account Nikasaur, which gets a lot of attention in game sometimes, which is funny. But now leveling this account up, I got really tired of playing normal games because I don't know, I just get really salty, and it ended up not being very fun for me when I would invest, 40, 45 minutes into a game, sometimes even close to an hour into a game, and one little mistake by my teammate would basically throw the game away. And I know there's a lot of things that led up to that point, that I could have contributed. But anyway, that's not the point of this. The point of this is to look into ARAMs. And so, one thing I want to address is people keep telling me when we get into ARAMs, oh, we just got out comped. You guys are playing on your stupid ARAM only accounts. We're playing against other ARAM only accounts. And I'll do a little segment on champions in ARAM later. And there's definitely a tier list, no doubt about it. But I want to talk about my thoughts on win percentages when it comes into a game. So, most people probably have around a 50% win rate in ARAM. That's just, I don't know, that's just how it is. And I'll explain that in a little bit, why I think this happens. But right now I think I'm around plus 60 in ARAMs, and I think my overall win rate is probably around 52 or 53% the last time I calculated it. So, I'm not really that much over 50%. I do have a positive win-loss ratio. It's always good to have. You don't want to be that scrub that has more losses than wins because it just looks bad. And so I'm definitely not the most mechanically sound player. In Summoner's Rift games, I have made up for my lack of mechanics by playing jungle a lot and using a lot of good big game sense and play calling to kind of snowball wins oftentimes. So definitely not the most mechanically sound player, which can actually really hurt you in ARAMs because a lot of it is just team fighting and it's landing skill shots and poking people down. If you don't have the mechanics, then gameplay is going to suffer. So I just want to go into my theory about, I don't know, after 1400 or so ARAMs, I just want to talk about what I've experienced. So here's a little diagram that I came up with. Well, alright, we can kind of see this a little bit. So let's say you have 10 games, right? So 4 plus 4 plus 2 is 10. So you've got a total of 10 games. So I think basically, you've got a distribution of games right here that I think is pretty much generally what you find when you play some ARAMs. Of course, it's going to change over short periods of time, short samples of games, but in the long run, this is what you're going to get. So you've got, okay. Alright, well, whatever. So out of a 10 game series, I think there's going to be approximately one game where you just completely stomp the other team. You out-comp them, they're 5 melees, and you've got 5 range people. They just can't wave clear, they can't deal with your damage, your poke damage. Just take the first tower, take the second tower, you're at their inhib before they're even like 6, and they just can't do anything about it. That happens. That's fine. I understand that. However, I think it only happens maybe once out of every 10 games. Getting out-comped, in my opinion, is part of the game, and something I definitely understand. But I also think it's very rare. So, again, it only happens 1 out of every 10 games. Well, maybe that's not very rare. Infrequently enough to not make a huge difference or impact the fun you're having in the game. And I think it's comparable in League to every lane losing their lane for a team and basically surrendering at 20 minutes, or the other team being at your inhib in 20 or like at 20 minutes, and you just being like, you should just surrender this. And then vice versa. I think that every 1 game of 10, their team just completely slaughters you. So, those are 2 games right there, 20% of the time. So you've got, then you move up to the next step, and you've got 2 games, again, 1 on each side. So these are the games that I think are really hard. So 2 out of every 10 games are going to be really team, and you're going to have to play very strategically, which I'll touch on in a little. But play really strategically and essentially play carefully, and they're going to be really tough for you to win because, they might have an extremely good poke team or early game team, but, you're going to come back later on as long as you don't feed too many kills, and you can come back and beat them, but it's going to take a lot of not dying, like, for no reason, or taking needless poke, and yeah, but I'll touch on that later. And then vice versa, there's going to be 2 games where it's going to be very hard for them to win, but they could still pull it out. And then I think there's going to be 4 games out of every 10 where it's like pretty even. Like both teams have the same amount of poke, teams have the same amount of like the game strength, mid game strength, late game strength, and it really just comes down to like mechanics and who's what team's better at team fighting and what team makes the least number of mistakes. So going by that, I think 1 out of every 10 games you just can't win. That's fine. I accept that. It happens. So I think where you can really increase your impact on the game is out of these 4 games, the average player probably loses this game, wins or loses both of these games, wins 2 of these 4, wins this, and wins this, for a total of 5 games won for a 50% win rate. I think where you can really separate yourself is in these 4 games, becoming mechanically sound enough to make an impact and basically take over all 4 of these games and win all 4. And then in this game, win 1 of the 2 hard games for your team. You can't win this one, like I said, just pretty much impossible. Win both of these and win this one, the game that's super easy for your team, a complete stomp. So now you've got 1 plus 2 is 3, plus 4 is 7, plus 1 is 8. Now, I think that's a little unreasonable, and there's also aspects to take into account. So I think 80% win rate's a little bit excessive, but you should be able to at least get 60 to 70 by taking control of most of these games, if not all. So I think that's actually pretty reasonable if you're. So what I want to touch on now, just a little bit, is a little bit of strategy, like I was talking about earlier. So let's say you completely outcomp their team. There's not really much you need to do. You pretty much just auto win. However, let's say you're in one of these other games where, the game's super hard for their team, but they could still come back and win it later if they play right. So the way I think that you need to play that as a team with a better early game advantage is you need to not tank turret shots. You need to just push down that turret as fast as possible. Push down their first turret as fast as possible, especially if they don't have any wave clear. Just push it down, push down the next one if you can, and if they have a strong level 6, do not group up. Say they have Oriana Malphite, like, there's a bunch of stupid bullshit. Like, do not group up, do not get ulted, because those are the kind of like level 6 going all in on you. Those are the kind of things that can like completely turn around the game. Like, if it happens once, fine, like you might be able to recover. If it happens again, like the game's probably right back to even if you were completely like zoning them out of their tower, just harassing them down. So, that's what I think needs to happen when you are on the good side of the stick. So if you're on the other end, what you need to do, one thing that pisses me off to no end is when people take unnecessary harass. If you know that they have a superior poke team, they've got Lux, Nidalee, Morgana, just like so much stupid shit. What you need to do is when their wave is not at your turret, you just need to stand back behind your turret, out of range of any of their skill shots. Like, there's no sense in taking damage when, like, it's just, there's no reason to. Like, you should never be taking damage for a situation like that. Now, if you're trying to wave clear, then that's one thing. You know, you might get hit, and that's fine. Like, you do need a wave clear. You can't just roll over and die. But, like, you might get hit, that's fine, then do your best to try and avoid it, wave clear. Avoid dying, avoid like feeding needless kills. Your best bet when you're just kind of getting poked out in an early game like that is if you see you have a strong later game where you just got some wombo going on and you're just getting poked down early, it's just turtle up. Don't take damage. Try and wave clear the best you can. Give up your turret if necessary to avoid needless deaths. Because when you die, you're not there to defend or wave clear, and they just poke and they just push down more turrets. Like, dying is really bad early on in ARAM. It's really bad, especially when they can get a push out of it and when multiple people die on your team. Very bad. But yeah, turtle up, and you know, you turn the game around later with some strategic initiations. Another thing, never 4v5, never 3v5, never 1v5. I see way too many people doing that. Like, how hard is it to count to 5? Like, if you have fewer members ready to fight than their team does, don't fight. It's that simple. Again, like I said, you go in, you're probably not gonna, if you're already behind, you're probably not gonna win a 4v5. Then more people on your team are dead, and then they're just pushing down more objectives. Like, it's the same thing as a normal Summoner's Rift game, and I just see people just run in and die all the time. Like, 1v5, I'm just like, what? And that really is annoying. And yeah, I don't know, I've played enough games at this point where even when things look grim, like when you play this number of ARAMs, you start to realize eventually, like things happen, like, oh, I used to think, like, you know, if the game was going bad at first, like in these 2 games, like, it's done, like they were just gonna push it. But then, like, I just remember this one game, not only were we losing, it was a 4-5, but we had just like a disgusting team comp. And I think I was playing Twitch, and their team was just like not focusing me, and our team was just keeping like the rest of their 5 people distracted. So not only were we losing, but it was a 4v5. And we actually came back and won that game just because our late game was so disgusting, and I was getting like Twitch ults off on their entire team. So anyway, that about wraps it up. I'm gonna go over the ARAM tier list later on. I just want to kind of show champions I own on this account. Not all ideal. I actually bought some of them before. I even started playing ARAMs only on this account. Just to kind of give you an idea. These are really good. Most of these are pretty good champions to have for an ARAM account. If you prefer, you can play carries only. I mostly like carry champs, whether they're AP or AD. Mostly AD. I feel like playing ADC. I feel like it's your best way to win a game in ARAMs, but not always. Sometimes if you're playing a god tank like Tarek, it's really good too. It's really good. Anyway, that's enough intro, and we'll get started on the games.